Did you know that emotional abuse doesn't just leave invisible scars on your heart? It fundamentally rewires your brain. We often hear about the psychological toll of emotional abuse, but few realize how it actually alters the physical structure of your brain. It's more than just hurt feelings. This type of abuse can change how you think, how you react, and how you see the world around you. The worst part? It happens slowly, quietly, and often without you even realizing the damage that's being done until it feels irreversible. In this video, we're going to break down exactly how emotional abuse impacts your brain, from changing the way you process information to altering the chemistry that controls your mood. We'll explore the real scientific damage that emotional abuse causes. If you've ever wondered why you can't seem to break free from those destructive patterns, or why you feel trapped in a cycle of confusion and pain, stay with me because the answers may lie deep within your brain. Section 1. Emotional abuse alters brain structure. When we think about abuse, we usually focus on the emotional and psychological pain. But here's the kicker. Emotional abuse also has a very real physical impact on your brain. Chronic emotional abuse floods your brain with stress hormones like cortisol, and over time, this constant state of stress begins to reshape your brain. It's not just a metaphor when people say, I'm broken. Hippocampus shrinkage, memory and learning loss. The hippocampus, a part of the brain responsible for memory and learning, is one of the most affected areas. Research has shown that sustained exposure to emotional abuse can cause the hippocampus to shrink. Imagine this. You're trying to remember something important, but the memory feels just out of reach. You know it's there, but your brain can't grasp it. Or maybe you're struggling to learn something new because your ability to retain information has been compromised. That's the hippocampus, eroded by abuse. You might notice you can't concentrate like you used to. Maybe simple tasks take longer, and you start forgetting things like where you left your keys or missing important appointments. This isn't just stress or distraction, it's your brain, physically altered by the trauma of emotional abuse. Prefrontal cortex, poor decision making. Then there's the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that helps with decision making and impulse control. Have you ever wondered why, even though you know a relationship is toxic, you can't seem to leave? Why you keep making decisions that go against your better judgment? Emotional abuse stunts the development of the prefrontal cortex, making it harder to think critically, plan for the future, or even act in your best interest. The abuse keeps you stuck, feeling trapped and unable to break free. This isn't a failure of willpower, it's a direct consequence of how your brain has been rewired. The amygdala is the brain's fear center. It's the part that kicks in when you feel threatened, preparing you to either fight or flee. When you're subjected to emotional abuse, your amygdala goes into overdrive. Imagine living in a constant state of alert, as if danger is lurking around every corner, even when everything seems fine on the surface. This hyperactivity of the amygdala means you're always on edge, constantly scanning for threats that aren't there. Even small, harmless interactions can trigger fear or anxiety. You might notice that you overreact to minor stressors or anticipate the worst in situations that don't actually pose a risk. Over time, this heightened state of fear becomes your normal. You're no longer able to relax, to feel safe, or even trust those around you. And this isn't just in your head, it's your brain, rewired by constant exposure to emotional manipulation, sending signals that you're always in danger, even when you're not. If the structural changes weren't enough, emotional abuse also wreaks havoc on the chemistry of your brain. Neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, which regulate your mood, become imbalanced. This leads to chronic issues with depression and anxiety. Depression and lack of motivation. Have you ever felt like you just can't get out of bed? Like there's no point in even trying because it all feels overwhelming? That's emotional abuse slowly altering the way your brain produces serotonin, which directly impacts how happy or motivated you feel. It's not just feeling down or having a bad day, it's a chemically induced state of despair. Mood swings and emotional dysregulation. Then there's emotional regulation, or in the case of emotional abuse, the lack of it. The prefrontal cortex, which helps control emotions, doesn't function as well when it's been under prolonged stress. This can cause wild mood swings. You might feel fine one minute and completely devastated the next. This emotional roller coaster makes it hard to handle stress. You may find yourself snapping at people or bursting into tears unexpectedly. It's not that you're overly sensitive, your brain's ability to regulate emotions has been hijacked by the abuse. One of the most challenging mental effects of emotional abuse is cognitive dissonance. This happens when your brain is trying to reconcile two conflicting beliefs at the same time. In an abusive relationship, this conflict comes from the love or attachment you feel for your abuser, while simultaneously experiencing the pain they inflict on you. Rationalizing the abuse. Your brain doesn't like these kinds of contradictions, so it tries to resolve the conflict by rationalizing the abuse. You might tell yourself, they didn't mean it, or it's not that bad. Maybe you even start blaming yourself. If only I hadn't done this or that, they wouldn't have gotten so angry. These mental gymnastics can keep you trapped in the abusive relationship because your brain is constantly trying to make sense of the emotional conflict rather than seeing the abuse for what it is. Perhaps the most insidious effect of emotional abuse is trauma bonding. This happens when an abuser alternates between cruelty and kindness, creating a cycle that strengthens your emotional attachment to them. The moments of affection or kindness, however fleeting, are enough to flood your brain with oxytocin, the same hormone that promotes bonding in loving relationships. These brief moments of relief and happiness create a powerful bond that can make it incredibly difficult to leave the relationship. Your brain starts associating those rare moments of kindness with feelings of love and safety, even though the abuse overshadows them. It's a toxic emotional trap that makes it feel like you need the abuser to feel secure, even though they are the source of your pain. This chemical cycle, pain followed by brief moments of reward, acts almost like an addiction. You become hooked on those fleeting good moments, even if they're rare, and despite the overwhelming presence of abuse. One of the most heartbreaking effects of emotional abuse is how it erodes your self-esteem. Over time, the constant barrage of manipulation and negativity begins to warp how you see yourself and the world around you. You might start to believe the things your abuser says about you. Maybe they've called you worthless and now you feel that way. Or they've told you that no one else would love you and you start to believe it. This isn't just emotional pain, it's your brain, literally rewired to accept these negative beliefs as truth. Then there's gaslighting, a common tactic in emotional abuse where the abuser manipulates you into doubting your own memories and perceptions. Over time, you begin to question what's real and what isn't. You lose trust in yourself, and this confusion further isolates you, making it even harder to leave the abusive relationship. Here's the good news. While emotional abuse can have profound and devastating effects on your brain, these changes don't have to be permanent. The human brain is incredibly resilient, and with the right support, it can heal. Neuroplasticity allows your brain to create new neural pathways, which means that over time you can rebuild your self-worth, regain emotional balance, and learn to make better decisions for yourself. But it's crucial to seek help, whether through therapy, support groups, or just talking to someone you trust. The first step toward healing is recognizing the damage that's been done. Understanding how emotional abuse affects your brain is key to taking back control of your life. It won't happen overnight, but with time, patience, and the right support, recovery is possible. If this video resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next video. And if you have thoughts or personal experiences to share, drop them in the comments. I'd love to continue the conversation with you.